He was the Frankenstein's monster of dragons, with Takhisis and Sargonas as his creators. Welcome to another Dragonlance Saga episode. My name is Adam, and today we're going to talk about Wormfather. I'd like to take a moment and thank the members of this channel, and invite you to consider becoming a member by visiting the link in the description below. You can even pick up Dragonlance gaming materials using my affiliate link. I am referencing the Legend of Huma and the Dragons of Krynn and Dragonlance campaign source books for this information. If I leave anything out or misspeak, please leave a comment below. The genesis of the Wormfather has its seed in Takhisis. The Queen of Darkness's ambition has always overshadowed her skill, and we see this from the beginning of time. In the Age of Starbirth, after Reorx crafted the planet of Krynn, Paladine and Takhisis guided Reorx in creating the rulers of this new world, dragons. These first dragons were shaped from the raw elements of creation and were contained in frames of metal. It was in the shaping of these wondrous beings that Takhisis found inspiration. She was so awed by Reorx's skill, she stayed by his side flattering him and planting the seeds of corruption unbeknownst to Reorx or Paladine in the creation. Takhisis' complete corruption of the 5 chromatic dragons, which infuriated Paladine, changed their very natures, connecting them to her, rather than Paladine or even Reorx, their creator. This much is well known in the mythological foundation of time. However, unknown to the gods, Takhisis has stolen some of the essence of the 5 chromatic dragons and delivered them to her consort, Sargonas. Sargonas is not the talented creator that Reorx is. None of the gods were. But this didn't stop Takhisis from instructing him after carefully observing Reorx in the formation of a new beast. Sargonas took the 5 essences Takhisis had stolen and forged an imperfect creature. He was rushed by his queen as Paladine had returned to Reorx in mourning for the chromatic dragons and beseeched Reorx to craft monuments to them. Paladine then breathed life into each, creating the 5 metallic dragons. Due to Sargonas' efforts to finish his creation before Paladine finished his own, the essences did not blend as anticipated, so the great beast turned out gray with mottled spots predominantly of green and blue as if diseased. His monstrous appearance did not stop there. He was far longer than any of his kind, and slimmer. His head and neck extended farther than any other dragon's. This aberration continued in his nature, and his ferocity was unrivaled by any dragon or god. Takhisis named him Wormfather, for all others of his kind were tiny by comparison. The Dark Queen's corruption caused a rift among the gods, which finally and gloriously erupted into the All-Dragons' War. This epic battle filled the skies with dragons of all kinds. The ground was soaked by dragon blood raining from above. No victor was to be found, and as more and more of the gods' creations were destroyed, Takhisis revealed Wormfather to her enemies. The dragons and gods were awestruck in horror at the very sight of this titan. Wormfather's size was such that he could gouge riverbeds into the land with his claws and swallow other dragons whole. His mastery of magic, taken from the essences of the 5 chromatic dragons, was unrivaled. Finally, Takhisis had the upper hand in the war, and victory was in her sights. That is, until Paladine called on his son, Kiri-Jolith, to confront Wormfather. The confrontation of Kiri-Jolith and Wormfather was one of mythic proportions. Krynn itself bears the scars of their battle. Mountains were churned up by their feet. Vast valleys were dug by missed blows. The seas rose in concert with their combined fury, and it lasted longer than a human year. In a final feint, Kiri-Jolith turned the tide on Wormfather, beating the great beast down and subduing it. Kiri-Jolith buried the Leviathan beneath a mighty mountain and stripped him of much of his power. He declared that Wormfather would remain in this mountainous tomb, never to see or soar in the sky again. His prophecy was concluded by declaring that this was Wormfather's fate, until one of Kiri-Jolith's chosen champions grants Wormfather release in death. Reticent to abandoning his creation, Sargonus would visit Wormfather and bestow upon him a mirror which would grant companionship to him, in addition to the ability of witnessing the outside world. After this titanic struggle and the power and rage unleashed in the dragons and gods themselves, Chaos and the Allfather appeared and threatened to end the creation the gods had crafted. The gods, humbled and fearful, withdrew to the dome of the heavens, the hidden veil, and the abyss, ending the All-Dragons War. This would lead to the aftermath of creation and the discovery of the sparks left behind from Riorx's forge, which would become the mortals, elves, humans, and ogres. Eons would pass, and Wormfather would burrow a myriad of tunnels underneath his mountain in an attempt at escaping his prison, all to no avail. With time and isolation, inevitably, madness took hold. He discovered ways to draw in treasure through the mirror, but these new riches only momentarily held his attention. As the centuries passed, time caught up to Wormfather, and as his eyesight failed, his madness grew. Now, even the mirror was useless to the Titan. With the coming of the Age of Dreams and the Time of Nights, Takhisis would yet again attempt to overtake Krynn, this time in the Third Dragon War. A young Solamnic named Huma would travel to the Last Gerd Mountains with his old friend Magius and a new friend named Kaz. They would become separated, and Huma would delve deep into the mountain in search of a weapon to defeat the Dark Queen. Ultimately, after initially fleeing from Wormfather, Huma discovered the Sword of Tears, which he used to defeat Wormfather, completing Kiri-Jolith's prophecy and finally granting Wormfather peace in death. Wormfather's body would become the metal from which all future Dragonlances would be crafted from, initially by Duncan Ironweaver and later by Theros Ironfeld. I find a fair amount of irony in the fact that the very crafting of Wormfather by Takhisis would ultimately result in the crafting of the very weapon used to banish her and kill her in the Age of Mortals. Takhisis' corruption of others inevitably results in her own corruption and defeat. I suppose it's the very nature of evil, according to the game designers, that it will always destroy itself. And that is all I have to say about Wormfather. What did you think of the story? Would you like more details about his epic struggle with Kiri-Jolith? And finally, is there any way for Takhisis to ever be successful? Leave a comment below. I would like to take a moment and remind you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, ring the bell to get notified about upcoming videos, and click the like button. This all goes to help other Dragonlance fans learn about this channel and its content. Thank you for watching. This has been Adam with Dragonlance Saga, and until next time, remember, dragons and humans have long been enemies, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend.